In 2013, the Australian coalition won a decisive 90 seats in Parliament, unseating a two-term Labour government. But why? See, the last 3 years have been a complete mess. Labour were marked by infighting and disunity, and when the election came, voters voted the other way. But nothing could prepare them for what would happen next.
The Australian Labor Party's vote is at the lowest level in more than 100 years.
No cuts to health, no cuts to education, no cuts to pensions, no change to the GST.
He sort of smashed his hands on the table and said, we can't admit that we fucking lied. There's been no fucking lies in this.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Kashi, good morning. Are you a bit embarrassed that you had to break so many election promises?
My political career is over. It is over.
A little while ago, I met with the Prime Minister and advised him that I would be challenging him for the leadership of the Liberal Party. We have lost 30 news polls in a row.
See, we're not saying it's all too hard. We're just saying it's all so unnecessary.
You've sent me, your organisation has sent me a submission saying it's impossible, which I think is one way of saying it's all.
Australia has a new Prime Minister after incumbent Tony Abbott was blindsided in a rapid leadership coup on Monday afternoon.
There'll be no wrecking, no undermining and no sniping.
And Malcolm said, Tony, please don't cut me off.
You just let me finish my sentence.
Tony from the back room says, well, Malcolm, you should let me finish my Prime Ministership.
But first, we need to understand what is factional politics. In most countries across the world, elections are won by two major parties, one representing the centre-left and the other representing the centre-right. Now, these parties operate as big tents or broad churches, where anyone who aligns with them more times or not are encouraged to join to prevent the other side from winning. This tends to lead to factions being formed based on ideological lines. The Liberal Party of Australia consists of three factions: the moderates, social and economic liberals, the centre-right, classical liberals and conservatives on social issues, and the hard-right conservatives, right-wing populists who are free market Thatcherites. The last 3 years were a complete mess. Kevin Rudd, who led the Labour Party to victory after 11 years of coalition rule, was deposed by his deputy, Gillard Gillard, in 2010. Between 2010 and 2013, Rudd tried to depose Gillard twice but was unsuccessful. In 2013, Rudd finally was victorious in deposing Gillard and led Labour to the 2013 general election. When the results were announced, Tony Abbott, a member of the hard-right faction of the Liberal Party, led the party to a decisive victory, winning a historic 90 seats in the House of Representatives. In the election campaign, Tony Abbott made three promises.
Well, Joe, Hockey and Andrew Robb are going to be releasing those figures later on today, and I'm not going to preempt the detail, but I can assure your listeners that there will be no cuts to health, no cuts to education, no cuts to pensions, no change to the GST, and Mr Rudd's hysterical talk of a $70 billion black hole will turn out to be just hyperventilation from a Prime Minister with no record to defend and no vision for the future.
However, when Abbott's government got into power, they swiftly introduced what they called a pain-with-purpose austerity budget, cutting family and health spending, tightening welfare rules, freezing foreign aid, cutting higher education, introducing a GP tax, and many, many more. Suffice to say, the public were not happy with this budget. They perceived the budget as targeting the weak and poor in society, and thus went to the streets to protest against the government, calling not only for the repeal of the budget but also the resignation of Abbott. Things wouldn't get better for Abbott moving forward. On the 31st of January 2015, the Queensland state election took place. In the 2012 Queensland state election, the Liberal National Party won a decisive victory, 73 seats out of the 89-seat parliament. It seemed like it was impossible for them to lose such a large majority. But when the election came, the impossible happened.
Let me fill in the chamber again. The numbers are actually sort of stabilising now. The 62.8% counted. The seats won. We're definitely giving away 39 to the LNP. We've now got Labor on a definite 44. When we add a few more lights to it, we've got one more seat, which takes Labor up to 45. And our prediction is now going one step further and has got Labor up to 46.
The man every voter, and it has been a great experience. My political career is over. It is over, at least.
The other issue here is that Tony Abbott didn't come to Queensland once during this campaign. Now, we've heard earlier tonight there are federal issues. There are real-time leadership issues in the federal parliamentary caucus over this election outcome, and I think that we should be looking at those tonight as well.
Well, rapturous, if that's the word for the ALP, then dumbfounded must be the word for the LNP.
The Queensland Liberals had lost an election seen as unlosable by any metrics. The signal was clear: a federal Liberal budget had brought down a successful state Liberal government. Yet when asked about it, Tony Abbott claimed no responsibility.
In the end, the voters of Australia are pretty smart. They judge state elections on state issues and they judge federal elections on federal issues. Now, I don't say for a second that we haven't made mistakes. I don't say for a second that we can't do things better, but I am not going to be distracted from the essential task of giving this country the good government that it deserves.
His party, however, didn't think the same. Within a few days, Western Australia Liberal MP Luke Simpkins called a spill motion to vacate the Liberal Party leadership. Tony survived 61 to 39, but he was left deeply damaged. It meant that 39 of his own members of parliament did not trust in his leadership, and he could see the writing on the wall. A rebellion was brewing and was coming for him. Tony vowed to bring good government back to the core of his leadership and let backbenchers be more involved in policy making.
A little while ago, I met with the Prime Minister and advised him that I would be challenging him for the leadership of the Liberal Party. Of course, I've also resigned as Communications Minister. We have lost 30 news polls in a row. It is clear that the people have made up their mind about Mr. Abbott's leadership. And we need a different style of leadership. We need a style of leadership that explains those challenges and opportunities, explains the challenges and how to seize the opportunities. A style of leadership that respects the people's intelligence. We need advocacy, not slogans. Ultimately, the Prime Minister has not been capable of providing the economic leadership our nation needs. He has not been capable of providing the economic confidence that business needs.
On the 14th of September 2015, Malcolm Turnbull held a press conference at 4 PM Australia time where he announced he would challenge Tony Abbott for the leadership of the Liberal Party just 2 years after they had formed government. Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott may have been in the same party, but principally they were completely different. Abbott was from the hard-right faction of the party, while Turnbull represented the moderates. Turnbull was a Republican, while Abbott was a monarchist. Turnbull supported same-sex marriage, while Abbott personally opposed it, even abstaining on a vote to legalise gay marriage in the future. Malcolm Turnbull was extremely keen on climate action, while Tony Abbott described the so-called settler science as absolute crap in 2009. In fact, the two clashed in 2009, which saw Tony Abbott deposing Malcolm Turnbull as leader of the opposition by a margin of 42 to 41. Suffice to say, Malcolm was out for revenge.
I was always very aware of the gravity of the situation. If I succeeded, I'd be Prime Minister. If I didn't succeed, that'd be it. That'd be the end of my political career. But I felt I had a real chance. I felt I had to give it my best shot. I sort of owed it. I just felt I owed it to Australia. That sounds very grandiose, but the truth is this was a terrible government.
You can see there now the gathering around Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister, and many of these people we've heard from over the last few hours, haven't we? Matthias Cormann, Josh Frydenberg, some of the women as well on the back bench.
So Bilson could be the deputy. There comes Malcolm Turnbull down the corridor. Mitch Fifield has predicted, one of the members of the leadership group, right next to him. Not surprisingly, Arthur Sinodina's behind him.
And Mal Brough, who was brought back into the parliament by Tony Abbott.
But they've held this tightly. No one has texted the message out. We know that much.
For being here tonight. Tonight there were 2 ballots conducted in the Liberal Party room. 1 ballot for leader, 1 ballot for deputy leader. In the leadership was contested by Malcolm Turnbull and Tony Abbott. Malcolm Turnbull was successful on 54, Tony Abbott 44, and we had 1 informal of 99. We had to repeat that, 54 and 44.
So there you go. Malcolm Turnbull has been elected with a 10-vote margin, the new leader of the Liberal Party. He will become the new Prime Minister of Australia. Tony Abbott, 2 years into the job, is finished as Prime Minister. This is a big call to dump a sitting Prime Minister, something they've been so critical of Labor for doing to Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd. Well, now they've done it themselves. Historically, for Australia, what does this mean? Well, for the 3rd successive term of Parliament, we haven't seen a Prime Minister able to hold their job for the full term.
My pledge today is to make this change as easy as I can. There will be no wrecking, no undermining, and no sniping. I've never leaked or backgrounded against anyone, and I certainly won't start now.
After what the right wing of the party saw as the political assassination of their hero, Tony Abbott, there is no way the right wing were ever going to forgive Malcolm.